Under the dim morning light, as the early mist still lingered over the wooden fields of the factory, a new chapter in Diep's life began. Episode 5 opens with a tense yet hopeful atmosphere, as Diep's single mother, who had endured years of injustice and suffering, finally steps out of the shadows of her past, reaching for a new future. At the same time, CEO James, once cold and ruthless in business, gradually finds himself moved by compassion and sincere emotions as he witnesses Diep's harsh fate. In this chapter, fragments of the present intertwine with bitter memories, painting a multi-dimensional picture where relationships are tested through time and hardship. In the past, Diep had struggled against the crushing weight of prejudice and the cruelty of those around her. She had been thrown out of her ex-husband's home, falsely accused of stealing the land title book, and left to fend for herself in a harsh and unforgiving world. But today, instead of feeling powerless, she is determined to reclaim her worth through a new job at a large woodworking factory. Today is already so much better than yesterday, she reminded herself as she stepped into the workshop. The job required agility and precision, but with unwavering perseverance and extraordinary resilience, Derwit was determined to make every moment count. Inside the factory, the loud hum of machinery blended with the chatter of workers, creating a bustling atmosphere. A young supervisor, his face a mix of enthusiasm and concern, approached Diep. "You're the new worker we hired yesterday, right?" he asked, his voice deep yet encouraging. "Yes, I'm Diep," she responded, her tone tinged with both hesitation and determination. "You'll be handling the task of stacking wooden planks onto the trucks for drying. The process of cutting the wood into thin sheets can be quite challenging, but I believe you'll do well. Let's get started," he instructed with confidence. Diep gave a small smile, picked up a hammer, and got to work. The rhythmic sounds of wood being cut and hammered echoed like the steady heartbeat of her resolve. Every strike of the hammer carved out her faith in a brighter tomorrow. Though her hands grew weary and calloused, the fire in her eyes remained unshaken. Meanwhile, in the midst of her busy work, CEO James, the head of CI Agriculture Company, was also occupied with a quality control and operations meeting. In the expansive office of the company, he attentively listened as various departments presented their reports. This month's wood production has increased by 32% compared to last month, and profits have hit a record high, the figures rang out. Yet something within James still felt incomplete. "Sir, the woodcutting process at the factory is being maintained according to safety and quality standards. We have thoroughly inspected each plank to ensure there are no defective products," a young employee reported. "Good. Make sure everything is flawless," CEO James responded, his voice firm yet tinged with a hint of exhaustion. At that moment, the production floor was bustling with activity when an unexpected incident suddenly heightened the tension. A batch of wood produced during the morning shift was discovered to have signs of unexplained fractures. A group of workers quickly gathered around, their faces filled with concern as they anxiously discussed the potential impact on the upcoming export contract. Mr. Lamb, a seasoned worker with years of experience, stepped forward. His hands trembled slightly, but his voice carried a grave tone. "We need to review the entire production process from the beginning of the shift, not just this batch. Without clear evidence, this could lead to significant losses for the factory." Immediately, the factory manager signaled for all work to be paused. Diep was assigned to work with the technical team to meticulously inspect each wooden plank. At that moment, she could feel the weight of not only the job itself, but also the trust her colleagues had placed in her abilities. Though her heart pounded with anxiety, memories of past hardships fueled her determination. "Let's take this step by step, carefully. Each plank is not just a product, it carries the hopes of the entire factory," Diep declared, her voice filled with unwavering resolve. Her words acted as a morale boost, gradually restoring a sense of calm among the workers. They divided the tasks, each person responsible for a section, scrutinizing every piece of wood with meticulous attention to detail. As Diep was deeply immersed in the inspection process, a private conversation between two young workers was quietly unfolding. They discussed the immense pressure from the leadership and the high expectations of CEO James, known for his strict yet fair approach. "I heard that Mr. James doesn't tolerate mistakes at all. Even the smallest error could jeopardize a major contract," one of them whispered. The other replied, "But I've noticed that Diep isn't just hard-working. She has a natural leadership quality. I believe she'll help us get through this." Those words ignited a sense of confidence not only among the workers, but also within Diep herself. She was no longer just a new employee, she was gradually becoming the driving force of the team during this challenging time. Their unity created a newfound strength, allowing the factory to swiftly resolve the issue and maintain production efficiency. Meanwhile, in the company's headquarters, CEO James was in the middle of a management meeting when he received a report about the incident at the factory. He quietly scanned the figures, a heavy feeling settling in his chest. Yet amidst the statistics, he could sense the perseverance and teamwork of his employees. Perhaps this is a reminder that a company's true value doesn't just lie in numbers, but in the spirit of the people who work here, he mused, a newfound sense of appreciation growing within him for workers like Diep. After ensuring the situation was under control, James made a spontaneous decision. He would leave the meeting and head to the factory personally. He wanted to encourage his workers and understand the challenges they were facing firsthand, looking for ways to improve their working conditions. As he stepped into the factory, his eyes landed on Diep, who was meticulously examining each wooden plank, her face glowing with resilience and determination. "Diep," he murmured, her name slipping from his lips like a whisper carried by the wind. After the tense ordeal, the atmosphere in the factory gradually became warmer. Workers gathered to discuss ways to improve quality control procedures, fostering a workspace built on teamwork, solidarity, and renewed hope for the future. Those moments, though fleeting, left a lasting impact on everyone's hearts. James's gaze lingered on Diep, not because of the exhaustion from work or the pressures of business, but because, in her eyes, he saw something rare. He saw sincerity. He saw a woman who had endured too much, yet refused to be defeated by fate. "Diep," he murmured, her name slipping from his lips like a whisper carried by the wind through the leaves. That day, amidst the hours of work and brief exchanges between departments, CEO James gradually found something in Diep that stirred his heart. "Perhaps I've been too cold in my work, too focused on numbers, to the point where I've forgotten that out there are people who need to be seen, to be cared for, and to be loved," he reflected. After the meeting, as employees began to leave, James made a decision. He would visit the factory in person to speak with Diep. He stepped into the workshop, dressed impeccably in his tailored suit, his sharp eyes scanning the room for the woman whose life seemed to be piecing itself together from a sorrowful past. "Hello, Diep," CEO James spoke, his voice warm, yet still carrying the commanding presence of authority. Diep looked up, her eyes wide with surprise and a hint of hesitation. "Sir." "Good evening, sir," she responded, trying to keep her tone steady. "How has work been for you? I heard that you've faced quite a few challenges adjusting to this new environment," he asked, his voice a mix of reassurance and genuine concern. "I'm doing my best. The work is tough, but I believe that with time, I'll get used to it," Diep answered, her voice slightly trembling yet filled with determination. "You know, Diep, in my eyes, you're not just a new worker. You're a strong woman who has endured so many storms in life and still stands tall," James said, his gaze filled with admiration. His words etched themselves into Diep's soul. In that moment, the burdens of her past seemed to lighten, making way for a newfound sense of hope. As the conversation continued, their exchanges grew more personal. James spoke about the pressures of business, his passion for his work, and the simple dreams of a man who had been swept up in the relentless whirlwind of figures and contracts. In return, Diep shared her story, the pain, the losses, and the fragile yet unwavering hope she clung to. "I used to think I wasn't worthy of happiness," Diep sighed as she recounted her past. "But now, after meeting you, I feel like maybe there are still good things waiting for me in this life." "Don't ever think that way, Diep," James said gently, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Your life is yours to shape, and you deserve every happiness. Let me help you, not just because of work, but because of you, someone I've been longing to understand and care for." At that moment, footsteps echoed in the distance, bringing with them a sense of regret and remorse. Pal, Diep's ex-husband, stood quietly, watching the scene unfold. He saw Diep not as the woman he had once cast aside, but as someone who had found strength and recognition in the eyes of another. A deep regret settled in his heart. "Perhaps I was wrong not to cherish you," he thought to himself, his voice heavy with sorrow, as he turned away and disappeared into the night, unnoticed. The world around them continued to shift with the passing hours. The golden morning light streamed through the cracks in the workshop, casting a warm glow over Diep's weary yet resolute face. During a brief moment of rest between shifts, she sat at an old wooden table sipping a cup of hot tea as she silently contemplated the future. She reminded herself that no matter how many storms life threw her way, she had to keep moving forward. Meanwhile, back in his office, CEO James sat by the window, overlooking the bustling cityscape. A deep, unshakable thought lingered in his mind. "I can't stop thinking about Diep," he whispered to himself. Perhaps, in the most difficult moments, that's when we truly discover the value of love and kindness. Before leaving his office, James decided to send Diep a small card, inside which he had written heartfelt words of encouragement. Diep, always believe that every step you take has meaning. No matter how difficult things get, hold on to your faith and keep moving forward. I am here, always ready to listen and share your burdens. That small card reached Diep's hands during her lunch break. As she opened it, her eyes reflected a mixture of surprise and deep emotion. Perhaps he is not just a boss or a leader, she thought, but someone who has shown me that there are people in this world who truly care about my fate. Amid exchanged words and meaningful silences, the connection between Diep and CEO James began to take root. Slowly, it grew beyond the boundaries of work, evolving into something more intimate and heartfelt. In the days that followed, James frequently visited the woodworking factory, not just to oversee operations, but to spend time talking with Diep. Together they strolled through the cold corridors of the factory, exchanging thoughts about their dreams and aspirations. Have you ever thought that no matter how hard things get, you still have the power to change your fate? James asked, his eyes filled with belief. I used to think that way, Diep admitted, her voice warm but tinged with sorrow. But over time, I lost that faith because of the wounds I've carried. Then let me help you heal those wounds, James said firmly, his voice gentle yet unwavering. Let me show you that love is not a chain that binds, but a bond that shares and overcomes hardships together. As he spoke, he softly took her hand in his. That conversation marked the beginning of a new chapter in their relationship, a chapter built on trust, on hope, and on the foundation of empathy and understanding. Though Diep still hesitated, her gaze gradually softened, and through her tears a faint yet genuine smile began to emerge. Just as everything seemed to be shifting toward a brighter future, a familiar figure appeared in the distance, her ex-husband, Pao. With a sorrowful demeanor and a face etched with regret, he stood quietly, watching the scene before him. If only I had cherished you more, he murmured to himself, his heart heavy with remorse. Though he did not dare to intervene, the weight of his regret hung in the air, casting a shadow of sadness over those who witnessed it. As the afternoon faded and the golden hues of sunset bathed the world in a warm glow, Diep and CEO James sat together on the wooden steps outside the factory. James spoke softly. I know I can't change the past, but from now on I hope we can write a new chapter together, a chapter of forgiveness and happiness. Diep gazed into the distance, where the last light of the sun slowly disappeared beyond the horizon. She let out a quiet sigh. I don't know if I have the courage to move forward, but maybe, with just a little bit of faith, I'll find my own path. In that moment, both of them understood that life is always full of choices, some easy, some difficult, but ultimately, each person must decide their own fate. James nodded silently, determination filling his heart. I will never let you face anything alone again, Diep. Please, give me the chance to prove my love and my loyalty to you. As night fell, the crisp countryside air surrounded them as they walked home after a long day of work and heartfelt conversations. The soft glow of streetlights flickered along the roadside, as if watching over them, reminding them that no matter how painful the past had been, the light of hope always awaited ahead. Before the chapter came to a close, Diep stood quietly by the window, watching as the silver moonlight filtered through the trees. She whispered to herself, maybe, no matter how many challenges life throws my way, I will find my own path, and maybe one day these wounds will heal, and I will discover true happiness. James stood beside her, his hand gently resting on her shoulder, a silent promise. Tomorrow, we will begin a new chapter, a chapter where love and forgiveness will guide us through every storm. As episode 5 comes to an end, the story still holds many untold moments. The fragments of the past, the lingering pain, and the unfulfilled dreams are waiting to be woven into the future. The next episode will reveal Diep's journey as she faces difficult choices where love and destiny intertwine, leading to unexpected turns. Stay tuned for episode 6, where the past and present collide, opening a new door for Diep and those around her, promising a different and more complete life ahead.